This podcast is being powered by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast Mentally a Badass. My name is Justine, known as Life with Justine on social media. So welcome to the first episode. This podcast is going to be a place where we talk about our mental health struggles and how it shaped us into the badass that we are today. Okay, so it's just going to be a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Justine. I am diagnosed with bipolar disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. So this podcast, I will be talking about my personal experience and how I overcome some challenges. Disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional. So if you are going through something very serious, please reach out to a mental health professional. I also want to let you know that I am recording from my bedroom and I live in an apartment complex, so if you hear any background noise, I do apologize in advance. I did write some notes for this podcast, but I also don't want to sound like I'm just reading from a Word document. So I'm definitely going to speak from my heart and from my mind. If I stutter a little bit, I do apologize in advance. But yeah, let's begin. So the reason that I titled this podcast Mentally a Badass is because I truly believe that people who have to deal with mental illness are badasses. I mean, we have this struggle with our brain, and it's just really hard for us to just operate like a other human being in society. So the fact that we're still here, which a lot of times someone who struggles with depression and bipolar don't want to be here, we are still here and we are living in society just like anybody else. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start talking about basically going into my past on how I became the person that I am today. Okay, I barely know where to begin, but I do want to start talking about my ADHD because a lot of my depression, anxiety kind of stemmed from my ADHD. So I was bullied a lot throughout my life, and I will talk more in depth about that in a separate episode. So I was bullied because people thought I was stupid. People thought I was weird. They thought I was annoying. Those were the main things that people would call me. I also did really bad in school. I was always one of the lowest in percentage when it comes to grades. So since I did really bad in school, I was thinking that all of the words that people were saying about me were true, thus made me have a really, really low self-esteem, which of course that is going to contribute to depression, anxiety. So going into high school, freshman year, I wasn't doing that well. And then I met somebody, which we'll talk about in another episode, who pretty much gave me the confidence, showing that I'm not stupid, that I just have to work harder. I always wondered why my sister didn't have any issues in school. She would get A's and B's on everything. So at the time when I was doing better in high school, I didn't know I had ADHD. Or actually, wait, no. In senior year of high school, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and then everything just made sense, and then they put me on medication, but that ended up making my eyes really red and such, so I went off it. So yeah, just thinking back, I was diagnosed in high school, but I ended up still being in Scholars English, which is great. College, I had to turn down parties, I had to stay late at the library. I knew if I partied too much with other college kids, I would literally fail out of college. And I did live with girls who did party almost every single night and did fine in school, which did show me that I just need to work harder. And there's been a lot of times that I really wish I can be like them and not have to struggle. But then again, part of me just makes me think it just really kind of builds my character and just makes me feel a little bit better of myself. Also, just on a side note, if you're listening to this and you do have ADHD, can you agree with me that coffee is literally mandatory every morning? We don't even drink coffee just to like have energy. Like, we need it to focus. And for me personally, like, I just finished drinking my coffee. I wouldn't have been able to record this podcast without it. I just pretty much feel dead without coffee. By the way, I don't know how these podcasters can just record straight for like 30 minutes to an hour without stopping, unless they're just doing really good editing. But for me, I feel like I'd say one paragraph, I need to stop and just gather my thoughts again. So if you have a podcast and you do that, I give you so much props. But this is also my first episode, my first time doing this, so I'm sure I'll probably do better down the road. So pretty much my point about ADHD and that is that even though I still struggle today with focusing and such, I still graduated college. I live a normal life right now. I do struggle every day with my ADHD. Like right now, I wanted to just stop, recording this podcast and finishing it later, but I need to start doing things from start to finish. I have so many different projects and so many different ideas running through my head, but I just don't finish them, and it's really a big problem for me. But I'm just kind of throwing it out there that I know it's a problem, so I'm pushing myself that I will get this podcast done today. Another thing that people will say about me is that I'm very hyper. My mom would always call me that, just like anyone in authority would always call me that, and that I just kind of have to sit still and just relax. And when I was in school, people called me annoying. It's because people found me annoying, I guess, maybe being hyper. So I'm not the hyper child like I used to be. I'm an adult, and I have to be, calm in the adult world. And also, I just learned better on how to control my emotions. When you're a child, everything's new to you. You don't really know how to control emotions. You learn as you go, just like anything in life. So as I'm recording this, I'm thinking back on how hyper I was, and it's a mix of my ADHD and my energy as a child. One of my biggest struggles today is, I guess, constantly looking at social media. I believe that my brain always has to be pretty much stimulated at all times, otherwise I will go crazy. If you look at my room right now, I have so many screens, which is really bad. I'm currently looking at a screen right now, which is my laptop. I have a TV now. I have 2 screens for my day job. I have Alexa, I have a phone. I'm pretty much always stimulated, and I feel like if I'm not, then I will literally lose my mind. It's really hard for me to just sit still and just do nothing. I have been struggling to do meditation. I try my best to be better at it. It's just honestly, I have to give it my all for meditation. I also struggling with reading books. I literally have to push myself, always have to really work hard on it, because my brain always needs to be stimulated. Okay, so we are going to switch gears. We're going from ADHD to bipolar. The reason I say bipolar is because my anxiety and depression is pretty much mixed with my bipolar, if that's making any sense. So if you don't know a bipolar disorder, bipolar pretty much means that I can either be really high, not high as a drug, but extremely happy. It's called mania, and I can be on one spectrum and then the other. So I can be really hyper, I can be super productive, and pretty much I feel like I'm on top of the world, which is literally amazing, and I get so much done. But then the depression wave hits, and I'm the complete opposite. I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to do life. I'm just there, physically there. That is a big part of me saying that I'm mentally a badass, because not being able to really control my moods is really tough. I know that humans can't really control their moods, but the thing is with bipolar is that I can wake up one morning, either can be in a really good mood, ready to take on the world, or just don't want to get out of bed. And I I know I don't have a schedule for it. It's unpredictable. So I can have something I need to do the next day, like really important, and then bam, depression hits me, and I literally have no energy to get out of bed. And it's a huge problem. And there's been times I've like waken up, I've had extreme anxiety, depression. Like I'll have moments when I'm like afraid of the world, and I would still push myself to get out of bed, and then I would take a shower thinking that will help, and then I would just like cry in the shower because I just have so much of like that negative energy, which is really bad. And honestly, like some days I'm fine, I push through, some days I feel defeated. And I know that can sound really contradicting to my title, but I'm not, nervous to say that I do feel defeated on some days. But the reason I'm calling myself a badass is because even though I have days where I'm defeated and I just don't do anything and I just lay in bed and literally do absolutely nothing but use the bathroom and maybe eating a Cheez-It from my kitchen. And most those days I just order food on Uber Eats, which isn't really good because I would call into work and lose money and then spend money, and it's just a vicious cycle. And trust me, I'm trying to like break out of it, but the depression is so bad, it literally feels like a weight on my brain. So I learned that I was bipolar back when I was a junior in high school. So when I was diagnosed, it's because I had an episode where my mental health got to the point where I wanted to die. And throughout high school, I felt like that I had so much of like negative energy, and it was between, of course, being a teenager and being hormonal, but that's what I thought, and that's truly what I thought what it was. But honestly, when I actually moved out to Florida, and I've met people from all over, the place, and when I talk about my, my high school life, my childhood, and like how my behavior was and such, I thought it was normal the way I acted. I don't know if it's just a Jersey thing. By the way, I'm from New Jersey, but I've learned that like I wasn't a normal teenager. I was a normal teenager, I guess, but I guess I was more of a reckless teenager. And then part of bipolar is being reckless and making really bad decisions. And I did do that in high school. I made a lot of bad decisions, and that was a lot coming from my low self-esteem that I've developed all the way back in grade school. It followed me into high school, which I was bullied still, and then pretty much all of that hate that I dealt with and such, and all of those experiences really fed into my disorder, which I didn't know I had until I wanted to die one day, and my mom and dad caught me wanting to die pretty much and took me to a psychiatrist that diagnosed me with bipolar disorder and ADHD and all that stuff. So the reason that I see myself as a badass is because I never gave up, and I acknowledge that I do have a problem, and I am, using my resources to step forward and help myself. To be completely honest with you, in high school I went for the treatment, but then I stopped my medication, but now me at the age 25 really is taking it seriously, and I don't have like my mom, telling me to take the medication. I just have to, discipline myself on doing it. The moral of the story is that a true badass is someone who acknowledges that their brains are wired differently than others, and is completely okay. They are just as capable as being successful as other people. Don't get me wrong, as I said before, I know some days it may seem impossible, especially with the depression. It feels like that huge weight on your shoulder, and it mentally hurts, and you just like want to lay in bed. It's okay to have those days. We are entitled to resting just like everybody else, but also just acknowledge that with people with depression, they may need more rest days, and that's completely fine because our brains, like I said, are wired differently. And then also, living with mental illness is not a life sentence, and it can feel like a life sentence if you don't go out for treatment or you use your resources. But I do hope this podcast can be used as a precaution. So whoever is listening to this, I just want to let you know you are a badass. You are doing great. I hope that you gain some value from this first episode, and if anybody wants to be on an episode with me and just kind of tell your story and talk about your experience, follow me on Instagram, which is Life with Justine, and send me a direct message if you want to chat on my next episode. But yeah, I think this is going to be the end of this episode. I really do appreciate you listening to this. If you want to follow me, click on that follow button. Also, if you want to follow me on other social medias, I believe I can probably put it on somewhere on my podcast. Don't really know, to be completely honest with you. Right now I'm just recording it. I don't really know how the things work, but I'm gonna figure out how as I go. But if not, on Instagram I'm Life with Justine. On Twitter I'm Life W Justine, I believe. On YouTube I'm Life with Justine, and TikTok I think it's Life W Justine. Some platforms people had Life with Justine already, so I had to put Life W Justine. But yeah, I mean, I'm most active on Instagram, TikTok, and I'm trying to be more active on YouTube, and Twitter is just Twitter. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening.